For over 1,000 years, the Galactic Republic, with the help of their allies in the Jedi Order, presided over a relatively peaceful and prosperous galaxy. However, after so many years of prolonged stability, the ruling body of government, known as the Senate, became mired in corruption and greed, with self-serving politicians manipulating the political process and galactic economy to their own benefit. In addition, the unity and security of the Republic was compromised by the rise of the Sith Order, which had worked in secret for 1,000 years, undermining the government and organizing vast networks of spies, underworld contacts, and political allies. Their grand plan was originally conceived by Darth Bane, founder of the Rule of Two philosophy, who passed his knowledge onto an apprentice tasked with continuing his legacy. The tradition of one Sith master and one apprentice then eventually led to the rise of Darth Plagueis and his own apprentice, Darth Sidious, who became a senator in the Republic, representing his homeworld of Naboo and using his position to destroy the government from within. After murdering his master and training his own apprentice, Darth Maul, Sidious, known to most by his birth name, Sheev Palpatine, orchestrated the Naboo crisis, convincing the Trade Federation to invade his homeworld and working within the Senate to produce a no-confidence vote against Chancellor Finis Valorum, forcing him out of office so that Palpatine himself could be elected to the position. And while the invasion of Naboo was halted and defeated by the Jedi, the Gungan armies, and Royal Defense Forces, Palpatine had achieved his immediate goal. A decade later, Sidious was prepared to launch the final revenge of the Sith against the Jedi and Republic by manipulating them into fighting the Clone Wars against a movement of separatists supposedly fighting to liberate themselves from Republic oppression. In reality, however, the separatists were led by Count Dooku, a former Jedi Knight who had left the Order years earlier, falling to the dark side and becoming the new apprentice of Sidious, following the apparent death of Darth Maul by Obi-Wan Kenobi during the invasion of Naboo. Dooku, now under the name Darth Tyrannus, organized the separatist forces, not aiming for victory, but instead merely sowing chaos and fear in the galaxy, with no intention of ever fulfilling the promises made to his followers. Palpatine, using the war as a pretense, then encouraged the Senate to pass a number of bills, giving emergency powers to the Chancellor, greatly strengthening his position. At the same time, he acted as a mentor to young Anakin Skywalker, a powerful Jedi training within the Order. Sensing the potential of the young man, he convinced Skywalker to execute his apprentice Count Dooku once the man was no longer useful, thereby remaining faithful to the Rule of Two and making room for his new apprentice. Nearing the end of the war, the Jedi discovered Palpatine's true identity and attempted to arrest him, but they were betrayed by Jedi Knight Anakin Skywalker, who fell to the dark side and joined the Sith Order. Palpatine then named the arrest attempt a failed Jedi coup and proclaimed Order 66, activating the inhibitor chips within the clone troopers of the Republic Army, causing them to turn against their Jedi generals, executing them where they stood. And while some few Jedi were able to escape this betrayal, the Order itself fell quickly. With everything in position, Palpatine then ordered the final defeat of the Separatists and an end to the Clone Wars, stating that because of all that occurred, the Republic must be reorganized into the First Galactic Empire, led by an Imperial Senate and himself as Emperor. But not all were prepared to give up their freedom and submit to tyranny, with some, like Senator Bail Organa of Alderaan and Senator Mon Mothma of Chandrila, working behind the scenes to build a rebel alliance willing to fight against them. And while some few Jedi and Force sensitives who survived Order 66 did what they could to help the rebels, the most powerful Jedi in Master Yoda and Obi-Wan Kenobi remained in exile, with Obi-Wan watching over Darth Vader's son, Luke Skywalker, hidden away on the planet Tatooine, where he might be raised far from his father's evil influence. Luke's twin sister Leia was left with Senator Organa, who raised her as a princess of Alderaan, and when she came of age, turned into one of the central leaders of the rebellion, following the example of her adopted father. Slowly, over the course of many years, the Rebel Alliance grew, gaining more momentum with every passing atrocity committed by the Empire. The construction of the Death Star and annihilation of the planet Alderaan then led to the Rebel victory at the Battle of Yavin, thanks to a fatal flaw built into the superweapon by Galen Erso, lead Imperial scientist on the project and secret Rebel sympathizer. Luke Skywalker and Alliance forces were able to destroy the space station. The next major milestone for the rebellion came at the Battle of Endor, where they destroyed a second Death Star being constructed, resulting in the deaths of both Darth Sidious and Vader, devastating the Imperial government. Unable to rally their forces after such a momentous loss, Admiral Ray Sloane ordered the retreat of their their ships to the Anaj system, granting the rebels victory. After the Battle of Endor, the Empire lay in ruins, and so most of the Imperial Navy retreated to the outer rim of the galaxy, allowing for the Rebel Alliance to become the New Republic, rising to take the place of the former government and slowly building a new galactic community reflecting the values of freedom, equality, and democracy. During the period of provisional government, Mon Mothma became Chancellor, with Chandrila serving as their temporary capital, though they eventually chose to rotate that privilege, with the Senate electing a new location for their seat of government every few years. Meanwhile, the remnants of the Empire continued to descend into chaos, with many former officers, admirals, and moffs fighting amongst themselves for leadership. Some even formed their own empires, carving out territories where their rule was absolute. Others used propaganda to convince their populations Palpatine was still alive and the New Republic was on the brink of collapse. With so many Imperial factions fighting for control, Admiral Ray Sloane, acting under the orders of a shadowy figure known as Fleet Admiral Gallius Rax, organized above the planet of Akiva, where the remaining leadership of the Empire might select a new leader and begin to re-establish their power. Yet they were betrayed by the Grand Admiral, who alerted the New Republic to the meeting, allowing them to send a fleet and kill or capture those in attendance. Ray Sloane, however, managed to get away and return to her master. Upon the throne world of Coruscant, Grand Vizier Mas Amedda, who served as one of Palpatine's closest advisors, technically inherited leadership of the Empire, becoming a proxy emperor, attempting to reorganize and administer the collapsing government in a galaxy of factional chaos. Yet his impossible task was made even harder when Coruscant itself erupted into rebellion and war, with remaining Imperial forces on the planet barely able to maintain their territories. As a result, Mas Amedda was the head of government in name only, with no real authority outside of Coruscant. His position became such a burden to him that he attempted to surrender to the New Republic, but was rejected by Princess Leia and Mon Mothma, who demanded he return to the Empire and not come back until he had the power to offer terms of unconditional surrender and a treaty that would officially end the war and recognize the New Republic as the legitimate government of the galaxy. Mas Amedda, finding the task impossible, considered killing himself once returned to Coruscant, but instead entered into an alliance with the now Grand Admiral Ray Sloane, who was working to cut the strings held by her puppet master Gallius Rax in order to become the sole leader of the largest Imperial faction remaining. But ultimately, the Empire was not able to recuperate what they lost, eventually defeated in the Battle of Jakku, ending Imperial reign across the galaxy through their formal surrender and signing of the Galactic Concordance. With the New Republic victorious, the many fleets and armies of the old Empire fled into the unknown regions, slowly rebuilding their forces to one day return and reclaim the galaxy. However, the New Republic proved ignorant of this remaining threat, and so began the difficult process of re-establishing peace and prosperity across the many worlds pledging themselves to the government. Yet the reach and resources of the New Republic were nowhere near that of the Empire or former Republic, and so many worlds, especially those in the Outer Rim, were neglected, becoming centers of piracy and organized crime, with many cartels like the Hutts re-emerging to prominence and power. Meanwhile, Chancellor Mon Mothma, who was holding together the New Republic through her charisma and the respect she commanded as a leader of the rebellion, pushed through the Military Disarmament Act, drastically reducing the size of the Republic Army and Navy. Although Leia Organa greatly disagreed with this move, Chancellor Mothma feared what a grand army might do in the future, instead focusing their resources on empowering individual member worlds to raise their own planetary defenses and rebuilding trade networks. In addition, Mon Mothma voluntarily abolished many of the emergency powers Palpatine had gathered for himself, and after several years stepped down from the position, passing gracefully into retirement. However, with no one else similarly able to unify the government, future chancellors proved unsuccessful, and the Senate soon became mired in political gridlock between the centrist faction, which wanted more centralized authority under a single powerful leader, and the populist faction, who wanted more autonomy for member worlds and the decentralization of power. After years of ineffective rule, the Senate of the New Republic voted to create a position of leadership called the First Senator, leading the populist faction to raise Senator Leia Organa as their candidate for the election. However, after an investigation into criminal activity occurring in the Outer Rim, Leia's centrist ally Ransom Casterfo was manipulated into betraying her when he learned that she was the secret daughter of Darth Vader. Casterfo exposed Leia to the entire galaxy, effectively ending her political career and forcing forcing her to withdraw as the populist nominee. The idealistic Senator Casterfo had been used as a tool by a secretive organization known as the First Order, a ruthless political and military faction born out of the remnants of the old empire. For years, they built up their forces in the unknown regions, using imperial sympathizers within the New Republic to sabotage the government from within. The First Order then turned on Casterfo, implicating him in the criminal activity occurring in the Outer Rim, seeing him arrested and sent to his homeworld for trial and sentencing. In addition, Tai Lin Gar, the new populist candidate for first senator, was assassinated by a First Order agent, causing the Senate to delay the election, further plunging the New Republic into political turmoil. Senator Organa, having led the investigation into the massive criminal cartel, which seemed to have ties to a number of Republic senators, knew her former ally Casterfo was being framed, and saw that a larger conspiracy was clearly taking place. She therefore resigned from her senatorial position and set up a meeting with many former allies and rebel leaders to form the Resistance, a private military organization that would remain vigilant against the new threats faced by the Republic. Sometime later, the First Order finally revealed themselves when a number of centrist senators abandoned the government, pledging their allegiance to the First Order. Although their territories remained in the unknown regions, they soon began to spread into the outer rim of the galaxy. The First Order was under the leadership of a figure known as Supreme Leader Snoke, who took on an apprentice, Kylo Ren, who was once Ben Solo, the Force-sensitive son of Leia Organa and Han Solo. Although initially a student of Luke Skywalker, he fell to the dark side and led the Knights of Ren against the Jedi and his students, killing his former companions and setting out to purge the galaxy of surviving Jedi and Force sensitives. The First Order used the many secrets and technological advances of the old Empire to create a fleet of powerful new ships, including the creation of Starkiller Base, a planet-sized weapon able to harness the power of a sun and destroy a number of planets in a single volley. The Republic, still struggling under weak and indecisive leadership, proved unwilling to believe the First Order proved any significant threat, sentiments greatly encouraged by certain senators within the government who were being financed by the First Order to hamper progress and prevent any action. When at last they were ready to reveal their true purpose, General Hux ordered that Starkiller Base be activated, launching a powerful attack that destroyed several worlds in the Hosnian system, including Hosnian Prime, which was serving as the capital of the New Republic, wiping out the government and their primary military forces in a single blow. This prompted the Resistance to strike back against them, destroying Starkiller Base. In addition, after Kylo Ren murdered his father, Han Solo, the man's longtime companion Chewbacca shot the Darkseid apprentice with a bowcaster, gravely injuring him before he had to confront a former stormtrooper and a Force-sensitive girl named Rey, who found Luke Skywalker's lightsaber and now used it to battle Kylo Ren. Rey, who was already well experienced in melee combat, became empowered by the Force, allowing her to defeat Kylo Ren, though the planet began to break apart before she could deliver the final blow. Suffering a setback, Supreme Leader Snoke ordered that General Hux bring Kylo Ren to his location so he might continue the man's darkseid training, while Leia Organa and the Resistance sent Rey and Chewbacca aboard the Millennium Falcon to find Luke Skywalker in self-imposed exile and ask for his aid in defeating the First Order. A special thanks to all those who contribute to Civilization X, like Skipalux the Unbroken, the Smiling Cow, and Maester Hades of Skagos. If you would like to help Civilization X, click on the Patreon link, and please be sure to like and subscribe, and click on the links to see more.